Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. It is Thursday, so we are talking Turner syndrome. And this week, I really wanted to kind of think and talk about all of the ways that our health evolves through life and the different ways that having Turner syndrome kind of can look and how it progresses and shifts and changes over time. So I feel like there are really three ways you can see this. And I think there are three important ways of tracking it and kind of keeping an eye on it and really paying attention to what's going on in your health in those areas and kind of what that information can give you. The first category is in your medicine. I know I have talked a ton about how my medicine has evolved over time and how I've gotten to really experience how different medicine affects me and really see the diversity in how different medicines can react with the different patients that have Turner syndrome, or different girls that have Turner syndrome, different women that have Turner syndrome. And I think that is a super important thing to pay attention to, because you never know when it could be time to find something new, to try something new, even just to adjust what you might have to see if there's a better option, or to see if there's something that's happening with it that maybe kind of pulls in the we should shift it and change it direction. So I feel like that's a super important thing to pay attention to. The second way I feel like this happens is in screenings. There are so many screenings that there is a lot of information you're getting, and all of it is going to be so unique and diverse to your specific case. Not only does that really show what's going on with you personally, but I feel like even if you looked at all of the different ways that screenings are done and what is most paid attention to and focused on in certain screenings, and even if at one point in your life certain screenings are super important and then at another part of your life different screenings are the most important ones. I personally have experienced this with when I started to talk about doing IVF. A huge amount of attention got put towards my heart and cardiac MRIs and echoes, and they really focused in on that, when otherwise it might not have been as huge of a deal to be paying as close attention to it. Not that anything earth-shattering came out of it. It was still always the same results I've gotten, but just it brought out that, okay, at that point, this is a hugely important screening, that this kind of time is really unique for. There's such a huge risk in that area that means that needs to be paid attention to that much more. And it would be that way all through pregnancy if I were to do IVF and go through pregnancy. So things like that dictate what screenings are most important and are going to be the most paid attention to, how often you have screenings. If you are having problems or you're trying to figure something out, you're going to have a lot more screenings than just, everything's been usual, everything's been pretty normal, so go ahead and only do it this often, and kind of just as a maintenance thing to make sure nothing's changed in a certain amount of time later. It's going to be more intense. There's probably going to be a lot more diversity in the screenings you're getting done, especially if you're trying to figure something out. So I think those are just things to think about with screenings, that while all of them are important, some might be more important at certain times in your life than others, and you never know when that's going to change. Things can pop up all the time, and you never know what's going to actually end up happening. I cannot tell you how much going through the process of doing the cardiac MRIs and the blood work and the echo really have shown me how things can change, and it might not always be that way. So that it is important to keep up on those, even if there's not ever been anything that's come of it, even if you've never had any problems at all, you've always been fine. Those are still super important to make sure, just so you know, something hasn't changed. And I was really shocked to find out that even if you didn't have heart problems prior to going through IVF and going through pregnancy, you were still at risk for it popping up, and that it was still necessary to watch for it. So that in and of itself is a huge example of your health changing and there still being a risk, even if nothing has ever been wrong. So that to me is probably one of the most important things. Your screening results, what do they look like? What's been popping up on them? Is there anything you need to pay attention to see and make sure that you are aware of what's going on, and you will know when something shifts in your health, if something changes and you need to pay attention to it. So that is one huge way I feel like it shifts. And the third and final way is in how you talk about it. And I feel like that has a lot to do with your health, because that has a lot to do with your mental health and your perspective on it. I started out never talking about it. I never really talked much about how I felt about certain aspects of it. I didn't honestly attribute a ton of the things I was dealing with to it, just because nothing had ever really come of it. I had never had major health risks, and so I kind of played down the way it affected me. And maybe, yeah, physically, infertility is still the only biggest way. There are other little ways that are kind of symptoms of that fact, that I'm affected in infertility in that way, but other than that, I had no imminent health risks. I had no heart problems. I had nothing to say there was anything majorly wrong with me. And I think that downplayed my ability to really see how it affected me in other ways. How it affected me with infertility, I was definitely not as in tune with. And I definitely, because of that, did not have all of the knowledge I do now as far as what that actually means my body is doing and how my body is actually functioning. And I feel like there's a sense of difference, being different than everybody else, that comes from having Turner syndrome or having a genetic disorder in general. And I don't know that I ever really let myself kind of consider that much. Not that I feel like I'm some huge alien or anything, but just that is something that is extremely unique for me, that I've only ever met one other person that had it in person. Because of that, it was not in my face, you have it and it makes you different. Not being able to have kids was really the only thing I thought about. So it opened up this whole world for me when I started talking about it. And then the way I started talking about it changed. I wasn't ashamed of it. I wasn't putting it on myself. And I started looking at it as it made me unique rather than I'm different, I'm weird, I'm off somehow, I don't work correctly. And I could look at it more as I'm uniquely made this way, and there's a purpose in that. And I don't actually have to feel bad about it. So those are a lot of the ways that I feel like you shift and you progress and you change over time. And I would love to hear if you guys have felt any of that, or if you have ways that either your health has evolved or your mindset has evolved or any of those things that I've mentioned. Let me know your experiences with that in the comments down below. And I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, give it a thumbs up and share it with everybody. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye!